Let's bring you part two of a sports exclusive conversation with the president of Roc Nation Sport International, Michael Yormark. He is in studio. So we left off by speaking about why the stories in South Africa are so appealing for an agency like Roc Nation to be involved with, to be able to help package it in a way that the global market can understand its true significance. I suppose it doesn't really get any better than Rugby World Cup 2023 and the way that played out.
It was amazing. I was very fortunate and blessed being located in London to be able to take the train, to Paris every weekend and to follow the Springboks. And I attended most of their matches, and their resiliency and also overcoming some challenges along the way was just absolutely incredible. As I look back now, I tell people I think it was destiny. I think it was destiny, for the Springboks to bring the Webb Ellis Trophy back home for the second consecutive World Cup. And prior to the World Cup, as you may or may not know, we represent rugby players on international players on England, as well as Artie on the All Blacks. And I remember mentioning to them before the World Cup that ultimately you're going to have to play against the Springboks. And if you haven't identified your purpose beyond just lifting the trophy or the personal accolades or just the desire to be a champion, you're not going to win. South Africa and the Springboks are motivated by 60 million people here in South Africa. There's incredible purpose and drive and inspiration when you're carrying a country with you into every match. We saw that. We saw that firsthand in Paris and throughout France during all the matches. And it was absolutely unbelievable. So, again, it was an honor to be there. And I can't speak highly enough of this team and all of their players.
We speak a lot about stories, and the key to a story, the key to storytelling is authenticity. So as much as you can have really great advice, it actually really needs to come from a genuine place. When people ask you how much is the story that the Springboks tell and that each of the players tell about their purpose and their greater purpose than just playing rugby to bring hope to South Africa, what do you tell them? That because there are some, as we saw during the Rugby World Cup, that think it's really great marketing, and they diminish the authenticity of what Sia and the entire team say is their purpose.
I tell people often, you got to come to South Africa, feel it, touch it, and experience it to understand it. If someone told me about the Springboks and their purpose before I started traveling to South Africa, I would have probably dismissed it as well. But having experienced this country 47 times now, since November of 2019, having met so many wonderful people, but also I've experienced the challenges. I've seen the challenges firsthand. I've gone into the townships. I've met people in the townships. I understand what this country goes through. I understand the unemployment. So based on all those factors, when the players talk about what it means to play for the Springboks and how they're inspired by the nation, how they want to create hope, I get it. But most people, for the first time, probably would not.
Yeah.
Those individuals also don't know the incredible stories of these individuals and the challenges that they've had to overcome to get to where they are today. When I think about, our two family members, our two clients, Sia Kolisi and Cheslin Colby, they shouldn't even be where they are today. Most people around the world would never have survived the challenges that they've had to overcome to get to this point in their life and their career. And those two individuals don't for a second forget the journey, forget where they came from, forget the hardships. And so when they put on that green and gold, it means something. It represents something. Something so much deeper than just lifting a trophy or saying, I'm a champion. Yeah. You saw that again in France, but more importantly, You saw that when they came home to South Africa. The parades, the unification of your country, the celebration. I don't think you would have seen that anywhere else in the world.
Winning a record for Rugby World Cups does, as a country, as a legacy, as a sport in our country, it's a game changer. But for the players that were able to actually do that, their legacy is immortalized. Where you are sitting from a professional point of view, I asked you earlier, can you quantify how much that'll mean for a Sia Kolisi and a Cheslin Kolbe? Because once their playing days are over, they then have the rest of their lives to also think about.
I can't quantify that in rands, dollars, pounds, or euros, because I won't. But I think, going back to one of my comments earlier, both Cheslin and Sia understand the importance of leveraging these moments, these important moments in their life, these milestone moments in their life. Because they're not just focused on today. They're focused on the future. They're both family men. They have children and wives. Yeah. And so they're fighting not just for themselves. They don't work hard just for themselves. They're working hard for their families. They understand, from a business perspective, that this is a moment that they need to take advantage of, that they need to leverage. And so that's why we, Roc Nation, my colleagues here, in South Africa, led by Mkhatsi, who's our, managing director, that's our challenge today. Our challenge today is to make sure that we're helping Cheslin and Sia leverage this very meaningful moment in their careers and in their life for the future. And so that means telling their story. That means amplifying their brand. That means creating strategic partnerships. And that means helping them to create financial security and stability for the long term.
The endorsement landscape for sports people in South Africa, is that comparable to what you are much more au fait with in the UK and in America?
Great question. If you asked me that question in November of 2019, I would have said no. But now fast forward to today. One of the things we've tried to do at Roc Nation, especially in the commercial marketplace, is really educate those brands on the value proposition that these incredible athletes are providing their brands. I've gone on record as saying in the past that I believe that athletes here in South Africa have been underpaid and underappreciated in the commercial market. I think there's a shift that's taken place. I think led by Sia Kolisi and Cheslin Kolbe and other wonderful athletes here that we don't even represent, more and more opportunities are being created. They are making sure that their value proposition is fair and that their compensation is fair. So I do think commercially, opportunities here in South Africa have grown significantly, and now's the time for both Cheslin and Sia to take advantage of that.
I know you said you are freshly understanding South Africa, but what I can tell you from a South African sporting landscape is that generally former rugby players are much better off once they have retired. Our footballers really struggle. We know that Roc Nation Sports International has a presence in football internationally. Kevin De Bruyne, Vinny Jr. You've worked a little bit alongside Mamelodi Sundowns, so you starting to understand the South African footballing market. And as we wrap up this conversation, you mentioned that over the next 5 years you're going to be quite bullish. Is football in South Africa an area that you really want to be expanding in, specifically taking out those personalities and those stories?
Absolutely. We've entered the football representation space here in South Africa. We have signed a South African football player in the PSL. I think there's a great opportunity for us to do more. We as an international company now have also doubled down on football. We've recently purchased the most influential agency in Brazil that brought us 120 footballers from that country, some of the best young talent in the world. We see football here on the continent as a great opportunity, as well as South Africa. So as we sit down and we think about our strategy, our growth opportunities, obviously rugby will be a part of that, but I do see football being more and more important to us as we expand here in South Africa and again on the continent.
Michael Yormark, the president of Roc Nation Sport International, thank you so much for spending time with us here on Newzroom Afrika.
Thank you.